mission, solving mysteries in the night. Chasing shadows, finding answers, shining bright light. No one's left behind, in the darkness all alone. With a heart like a siren, she brings the lost ones home. Silent cries in the dark no longer have to be, for justice wheels keep turning, Granny on the beat. Broken voices find their power, call out hope again. When these crime busters run, no victims left to pay. Bravery in her veins, truth she won't disguise. With a fire in her eyes, she's got nothing to deny. Granny fights for justice, never backs down from the call. For the voiceless and the missing, she'll stand tall.
Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight? I hope you're all doing really well. Good to see you. Hello, Ginger Girl. Oh, it's been warm here today. Not much going on. We'll start out with our spotlight on the missing. Today we have Camilla Jane Cortez Cruz. She has been missing for 2 days, guys. Last seen in Arlington County, Virginia. Second one in Virginia in a couple of days, guys. 15 years old. She was last seen wearing a gold heart rose necklace. If anybody knows anything about Camilla's whereabouts, what happened to her, her disappearance, please call the Arlington County, Virginia Police or Sheriff's Department or 911. We need to bring our people home. Just a reminder that Travis Decker is still on the loose. He could be anywhere. Do not approach him. Just call 911 if you think you see him. He's 32, 5'8", 190 pounds, black hair, brown eyes, facial hair, mustache, and a beard. His hair might be in a ponytail. If anybody knows anything, he is the man who took the lives of his 3 daughters and left them in a park to die. All right. And then don't forget we have Jonathan Huang, who is an autistic 21-year-old male who's been missing since March 30th. His parents are pleading with us to get his picture out there to let it be seen, because he, even though he is high functioning, he does respond to his name, but he doesn't know how to take care of himself, guys. His only social circle has been his immediate family for most of his life. So if anybody knows anything about Jonathan's whereabouts, call Arlington PD or his dad's phone listed on the screen right there. All right. Prayer Warrior, hello. Under air quality warnings, yeah, they're recommending that we wear masks. And I thought, does that mean I should be shutting my windows? I don't want to shut my windows. Yeah. We don't have bad fires here, but that fire in Canada is really bad. Oh no. Yeah, that's never good, because if you didn't get snow, you don't have any precipitation in the ground, right? All right, so I watched a video last night that was really, really good, and I decided that we really kind of need to watch it together and discuss it. It might take us 2 nights to do it, guys, but it's about Jack and Lilly, and it's about behavior analysis of Daniel and Malehya. Of course, there's not going to be much about Malehya because we only have the one interview, right? But Had several from Daniel. So you spent the day putting your air conditioners in. Gotcha. Ruh. I don't know. Maybe. I don't want to turn on my air conditioner. Makes my electric double. I just don't want to do that. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to share my screen. And so this young lady, Sadie, is actually from Nova Scotia, guys. She edits videos for the behavior panel, Greg Hartley and those guys. And Greg was actually on her show to talk about this case. And I love the way that they talk back and forth to each other. He's very kind with her. Her channel is, fairly new, and she's gotten a lot of views on this. So, all credit to Sadie and the Prime Minister of Behavior. If her link is in the description of my video, guys, let's go ahead and talk about. We'll listen to Greg. We'll stop it and talk about what he had to say about Daniel and Malehya.
Say, oh, it's ongoing, he talks as if the search is already done, like it's like, oh yeah, we did that, we searched everything, it's it's done.
Yeah, and some people do that.
Right.
Usually you don't think they'll do that when there's hope for their child. Some people
Right.
talk about everything in past tense. One of the things I always push back on statement analysis about is some people just are educated differently. I'm not
That's
sure
true.
he's the smartest guy in the world. So I can't tell by this video, but I did see a couple of things. But yeah, it seems pretty closed-ended. Not, hey, can you help us?
Right.
Not, hey. I mean, for me, if my
I'm going to back it up a little bit, but I do find it funny how I have heard Mr. Yummy talk about how he doesn't agree with behavior analysis, and now Greg Hartley is pushing back against statement analysis. So who's right, who's wrong, guys? I think any of them could be right or wrong, right? They're just sharing their opinions based on what they've been taught. So, they could be wrong. They could read things the wrong way. In behavior analysis, they kind of go by a baseline. So, it doesn't mean that any one of them are 100% right, or, so, but I did find it funny that they don't kind of like each other's businesses. It's kind of weird. But yeah, I thought I had it set, but I'm going to go ahead, start it here.
day, I got up at 3 a.m. to leave the place I was in. I was in the airport and I was going to send this to you at 4 a.m. And I was like, yeah, that's a little bit early.
I was up.
But oh yeah, I figure you might. But I was just digging through videos and I really wanted to cover this case you guys are dealing with because I think we can add some value as a team. But I don't think we're going to. I think it needs some immediate action. And you and I both agreed, let's just look at it.
Mhm.
And I found 20 seconds of a clip that I just went, oh, I need to call Sadie. And that's how we got started on this conversation. And you said, well, you wait till you see see the mother. So I'd seen the father.
Yeah.
Realized I have not seen anything of the mother. Sadie's pulled some clips, and we're going to talk about those. I'm not going to preach. We're going to talk. How's that?
Perfect.
Me and my family still go out sometimes and search, but everything's been searched that we can really dive into at this time. They have over 12,000 man hours searched in the woods, and they're planning on doing more, which I'm really grateful for.
First off, what was your immediate response when you saw that 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it was.
So I noticed before in another video that he did, he talks very he speaks in finality. He doesn't say, oh, it's ongoing, you know. He talks as if the search is already done, you know, like it's like, oh yeah, we did that. We searched everything. It's, you know, it's done.
Yeah, and some people do that.
Right.
You know, usually you don't think they'll do that when there's hope for their child. Some people
Right.
talk about everything in past tense. You know, one of the things I always push back on statement analysis about is some people just are educated differently. I'm not
That's
sure
true.
he's the smartest guy in the world. So just, I can't tell by this video, but I did see a couple of things. But yeah, it seems pretty closed-ended. Not, hey, can you help us?
Right.
Not, hey. I mean, for me, if my kid was missing, I'd be like, hey guys, we've done everything we know how. How
Yeah.
about you help us? Write in, send ideas, do anything. Look, you got a cell phone. Take pictures of any little kid footprints you got.
Yeah.
None of that's there. Nothing. It just feels like, well, you know, they've been gone a few days. All right, maybe we just throw in the towel now.
Yeah.
It just feels awkward. Yeah, that part feels awkward. I agree with you.
It really feels like I mean, at the same time, it also has been over a month now at this point. I guess the interview was a few days ago that this happened.
Okay.
So it's been almost a month at this point. So I feel like at that point you would likely be.
Yeah, you'd feel pretty destitute. And I say this all the time. Usually you're lost everything. I mean,
Right.
I don't share this all the time, but you know, we lost our son.
Mhm.
And in 3 weeks, I had and God, I can't know how Dina even got through it, but in 3 weeks, your personality is gone. You're so emotionally wrung out. You just can't, I mean, it's unimaginable. And a lost child is probably as bad or worse.
Mhm.
There's the lost child, at least there's still that glimmer of hope at the end.
Right.
But it's, I don't know. The thing for me that made the reason I called you, the reason I texted this though, is we want you to go back and watch as we talk about this. And Sadie's going to figure out how to make that really pretty because she does that for us all the time. But this guy, his speech patterns change as he's talking about where they have searched. He's got a pretty good little clip going there.
Families still go out sometimes and search, but everything's been searched.
And then he goes to,
Everything's been searched.
and you know, I always say what's going on is the monkey brain is taking over. That cat brain, this is when the guys always joke around when I said I'm bringing a monkey to the dance. I work really hard to get people to this position where they can't think.
Right.
And he is trying to figure the right words. And he says, dive in.
Dive into at this time.
Not only does he say that, his shoulders come up and he bounces a little bit when he says it. And it's out of place. Everything, go back and watch cadence, watch pronunciation, watch volume about dive. Watch all those pieces and tell me what you see, or what do you see, Sadie? Because this is out of his base and a weird choice of words. If I were talking to law enforcement, I would start searching the water around this place. That's a weird choice of words. Maybe he says it all the time.
Well, well, well. If I was law enforcement, I'd start searching the waters. He did say that. He said, dive in. And he did. His shoulders came up. He bounced up a little bit. His voice went up. What have I been saying, guys? If you want to plan the perfect crime where nothing is discovered, where do you take them? If you live close to the ocean. I don't like to think that way, but my goodness. I actually used a past tense recently. A clerk asked what color my missing phone was. I said it was purple, but in reality, it is purple. Made me think a minute. Well, I could see you using past tense there, prayer warrior, because you didn't have it anymore. It was past tense to you because it was purple. So I understand that. I learned today that the statement analysis peeps will not look at behavior analysis videos. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if these guys look at statement analysis videos, but you know, Here's the thing. I'm open to anything that's going to help me to understand people's words and their behavior. Put it all together, right? Because basically, what they're both saying ends up panning out. Look at the behavior analysis videos that we watched about Chris and Katie, and then look at the statement analysis videos that we watched about those two. Putting them all together, it was the same, wasn't it? Daniel, yeah, he probably will. So did I, Kate. That's why I wanted to kind of, yeah, Ginger did too. And not only that, but Neuro sent me an email about it. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's the great minds thing again. We all want to learn, we're wanting to learn. And that's what I love about everybody that comes into our chat, our family here, because we all are critical thinkers. We all want to think about what's going on. We want the truth, right? So we listen to statement analysis people. We listen to behavior analysis people. Does it mean we agree entirely with both sides? No. But we pick out what kind of hits us in the gut, right? And we go with it, honestly, after watching this, I'm maybe not so much on the fence anymore yet. But I think I'm going to purposely stay on the fence and try to stay objective as much as I can, simply because there's still so much that we don't know. Right? So let's continue on. But yes, the dive in the water thing, I mean, of course, we weren't far into it. I wasn't far into it last night. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. And, the last thing I want to think is that those kids are in the ocean. I'm a granny. The last thing I want to think about is two precious babies in the ocean. But I also don't want to think about two precious babies missing either. And missing they are. And they don't seem to be in the woods so far. So where are they? But let's continue on.
Everything's been searched that we can really dive into at this time.
My little suspicious brain is going, something's up here.
Mm-hmm.
Embedded confessions look just like that.
Wow. When you sent me that message and you gave me that timestamp, I went right to it. And
embedded confessions look just like that. Oh, guys. Let that sink in for a minute. Embedded in confessions look just like that. You're totally on the fence, yeah. You may not be after this video, Prayer. I'm just saying. I did hear on the dispatch that the divers were there the first day checking the bodies of water close to the home. And you don't think that whoever did this didn't know that those bodies of water weren't going to be searched? What's a body of water that can't be searched? Just saying. The Bay of Fundy.
I saw that and I hadn't even put that together before you had said that. And it was so shocking to see that.
Yeah, it's just such a weird word pattern change. And look, when we talk about body language, what we're really talking about is change because all of us communicate. And, I always say this, 3 pieces, 2 pieces. The 3 pieces you communicate with are gestures, illustrators, and regulators. And the 2 pieces that protect you are adapters and barriers. We expect a person to be fluid and speak and move their hands. He's not doing that we can see. His shoulders go up when he says dive is the only time we see any real movement. He's communicating something, whether it's intentional or not is another question. He
is communicating something. So, guys, I have to tell you, last night, or was it this morning? One of those two. I was looking at analytics for my channel, right? And it actually pointed out one video that I did that is bringing new viewers still today into my channel. And I thought, what one was that? And it was actually a video that I did on March 20th. Almost, a couple of months ago now. So, but as I was listening to it, because I kind of wanted to refresh my memory, why are people clicking on this, right? We were talking statement analysis, and it was on Sebastian's case, okay? But they compared Chris Watts saying, "Oh, I miss them barreling into my room." Well, where were the kids found? In oil barrels. And then they showed Katie saying, "I'd probably bulldoze them down with hugs and kisses." Of course, that's yet to be seen, right? But using those terms sometimes are key. I mean, it absolutely was in Chris Watts' place. I just can't, they come barreling in my room, right? It's not something, that's said very often. I've heard it. It's not that I haven't heard it, but it's not, a common phrase. And bulldozing them down is not a common phrase either. Diving in, depending on the text, could be, but the way that Daniel said it in this sense wasn't common to me. Right? So, as we move on in other cases and things, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for words like that and behavior like that, because we never know. We never know. Remember, he talked about being waist deep in water. Daniel did. I'm just saying, he used quite a number of water references.
communicating. We don't know where else to look. We're hopeless. But dive is a weird choice of places there. So I think I'd dig in a little bit if I were the police.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Weird.
Wow. So now we can watch.
The mom.
Yeah, let's watch.
I haven't seen her yet at all. So this will be interesting. And sorry, guys, we haven't gotten to this on the channel, but I think it's more important to say that you do it because you're local, you reach more people close. And yeah, and thank you for bringing me on.
Oh my gosh, thank you for being here. I told you this is like a dream come true. This is like,
don't be silly. This is your family.
She's
Oh
so
my gosh,
excited. I'm
thank
happy
you.
for her.
Just staying as hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens. and they were outside playing, but we weren't aware of it at the time. And the next thing we knew, it was quiet, and we get up and I tell him, my partner, Daniel, I tell him, "Do you hear the kids?" And he says, "No." And we get up instantly. We're looking outside. We're looking everywhere, yelling for them. And I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids.
Yeah, you know my first observations, just very first things. And remember, this is the first time I've seen her. Up talk, up talk, up talk when she's talking about the kids. Down talk, down talk, down talk when she's talking about what other people have said to her. That's a baseline deviation, because if other people have said something and you're saying, they told me, they told me, they told me, why would you say the kids are good? They would go outside. The other question that comes to mind for me immediately, and this is without body language, if you know they go outside because you tell them not to, why don't you fix that problem? I would want to go see the door and say, how'd they get out? Because, I block my own sliding door with some kind of apparatus so somebody can't open it, much less if children are in there so people can come in. Forget the children going out. Why wouldn't you have a lock of some kind so nobody can come in? So there's a ton of questions from a logic point of view. But that up talk, she appears to have grief in her brow, but she's also in the sun, which is tough. I mean, when a person's in the sun, they may do that. I do it a lot because I'm very pale skinned and blue eyed. So in the sun, I'm doing that all the time. So it's really tough to know, is the person squinting or showing grief? I don't see, there were a couple other things in there too. We played a fairly long clip. What about you, Sadie? Because you've watched it.
Well, I noticed that she doesn't start with, the way that she starts the story is at the very beginning of the day, as opposed to when you come out of the room and you see that your children are gone. I feel like that would be the most important thing to highlight.
Yeah. I think that's a good call. Sometimes if it's been a while, then then it may take a while, and you may go back and answer questions because people have poked and prodded you. Like guys I've interrogated, they almost start always back at the beginning of the story if you give them a chance.
Okay. This interview, for context, was the day after. So they left on the Friday, and this is on the Saturday.
Feels like a setup. Then. Yep.
Yes.
If they're saying, oh, early in the morning, we heard them. And then of course, remember Cleo Smith, the little girl? They said the same thing. Remember they said, we could hear her in the room next to us, and then we couldn't hear her. So sometimes people do feel guilty and will tell you more details. She's at least less, right out of the gate, as far as we've watched, she's at least less concerning for me than the guy, because that big word pattern disruption.
So he considers Malehya less concerning than Daniel. Hello, K9. Good to see you. You don't appreciate her use of the word instantly. Yeah. And the word instantly, when she uses it, she's actually lying, because she stated that she instantly called 911, but she did not. They got out of bed. They looked around. Daniel went outside, and it wasn't until 9:40 or whatever time that they called 911. So it wasn't instantly. So that word, I agree with you, prayer warrior, little bit trying to make herself look good, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Makes me want to, and look, it can be nothing.
Yeah.
But he would get undivided attention if I were in the room with him over that statement. What else did you see? Because Again, the
There's
first time
is it-
looking at it.
Yeah, and it was a long clip. I should have broken it to parts.
We can go back and watch pieces if you want. I got time for whatever you want to do. I thought I saw disgust in there one time too. I thought I saw, but it can be sunlight as well. So there's reason I didn't mention it when I saw the little nose crinkle.
The other thing I wanted to bring up is that when Mr. Yummy did Malehya's, he saw some red flags, right? He had in the beginning more for Malehya than he did for Daniel. So here is an example of where the two statement analysis and behavior analysis, first impressions don't match up. But let's continue on.
It's been raining and they're probably soaking wet, but with the sun today, I'm hopeful that they are feeling warm. We're all filled with pain and sorrow because we just want them found.
Look at her forehead now. When she says pain and sorrow, the horseshoe's gone. It was there earlier. Yeah, and in this case, I'm less suspicious of her saying wet because she's saying it's been raining. I get that. The other guy, though, that dive thing is just so out of place. I mean, where do they live? They live right on the ocean?
They live right in the middle of the woods, but there are lakes around. And I mean, it's Nova Scotia, so there's ocean, like
an hour away.
An hour, if that. Like,
I'm just wondering because some people use dive all the time because maybe that's his hobby or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to give him the benefit of a doubt, but that choice of words, if you were doing a normal choice of words and you use it all the time, you would have said, there's no place to dive in. That's not what.
Okay, but Daniel's a fisherman, not a diver. Okay. A fisherman that's maybe used to wearing, those, what do they call them? I can see them in my brain, but waders, right? But not a diver. We've never heard anything about him being a diver, right? Oh, I like Greg Hartley. My opinion, I love him on the behavior panel. And yes, Sadie edits his videos and has been for about 5 years now.
What he does, he's Tell me what you've got, Sadie, because you probably got a ton of stuff. You've been watching this, and
oh yeah, I've been overwatching this. I feel like I've been getting too far into it. It's so interesting because to be honest, I had a lot of red flags with her, and I'm still on the fence with the stepfather. So there's one point where she stumbles over the word search effort, which I just stumbled over. So I guess it's not really saying much, but I
heard that.
Was wondering what you thought of that.
Yeah, I heard it and I didn't assign anything to it because it's a weird, people don't use it every day. It's not like 7-Eleven or something like that, convenience store.
Yeah.
Most of us don't ever have a reason to have search effort. We don't. I mean, I'm a military guy, so different kind of mindset. But you would think that she would have a little, the lilting up is my problem. Search effort didn't. And let's go back and listen. I bet when she says search effort, she doesn't lilt up. She only does it when she's talking about the kids.
Yeah.
She's asking for approval when she's talking about the kids and not when she's talking about other things. Good call out though, because those kinds of things sometimes are the biggest red flag.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's so there's so much going on here that there's just so many questions regarding this case in general where you just have no idea what's happening. So everything is,
here's the thing. When you lose a kid, God forbid anybody deals with a kid getting kidnapped or lost or even, any of that. But your brain, there's no place in your brain for that. And when it first happens, you're scrambling for trying to understand. You don't have any, this is a frame of reference problem. And if it's day one, you can be scrambling for what the hell, how'd this happen? What did I do wrong? Even if it is above board. Now add to that, when it isn't above board, a different story. So I think we have to give them a benefit of a doubt a lot of times. And you'll hear me say that, like sometimes people have no frame of reference. Sometimes there might be drugs involved, meaning they were sleeping because, and there's guilt associated. I don't know anything about these people, but if they drank a lot the night before and they slept through and their kids disappeared, that could be guilt. So I try to look for all those reasons when I'm thinking about it. And so, yeah, I appreciate you doing it this way. Sadie, it's worth looking. But that lilt up is my first red flag.
Yeah.
I appreciate the huge search up.
Channel.
Thank you.
Glad things are going well for you.
Oh, thank you so much.
In a while, then then it may take a while, and you may go back and answer questions because people have poked and prodded you. Like guys I've interrogated, they almost start always back at the beginning of the story if you give them a chance.
Okay. This interview, for context, was the day after. So they left on the Friday,
agreed.
and this is on the Saturday.
Feels like a setup.
Lacey. Brenda Joe just showed up. So Lacey sees her out my window and she can't get to her because the door downstairs is closed to Brenda's apartment. So, you guys all got a good earful of how loud her bark is. She actually made me jump. I jumped and then I clicked the wrong thing on the video that we were watching and I lost my place. Oh, goodness. She loves her Brenda Joe. So I can understand that. It's just me and her mostly. So when she gets another person, she's just all over it, right? All right, let's go back to our video.
Yeah, it's very interesting that was, and it seems like that was a big point for them, just continuously trying to push Amber Alert, somebody abducted them.
So let's talk about something let's remember we talked about D and read. The most important things is D. Let's talk about how you would react. Not just you, but your neighbors. You live in the same province. You live in a very wooded area, not far from there.
Yeah.
And your immediate reaction would be, hey, where are my kids?
Yeah.
What else? What's abnormal from a cultural point of view that you're noticing that I wouldn't pick up on?
Right. I guess that I feel like there's just so much. Like, I think that's why I'm so drawn to this case, because there's so much to it that I'm finding so many things abnormal. It's not just like one thing, it's everything. Like, even like you said, the door, they say that the sliding door is quiet and they snuck out of it. And
put a bell on the damn thing. I mean, come on.
But even looking, there's like a picture that was taken of it, and it does not look silent. It does not look like a quiet door that a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old could open easily. Right. And I mean, same thing. We have one of those doors in our bedrooms, and there's a 2x4 like blocking it, so it can't open. So I don't know. There's just,
well, it doesn't pass the sniff test for logic. Number one, we all are going, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Then when I hear that up talk, if we go back and listen to that up talk, we can figure out which part she up talked and which part she didn't, and say, is there a problem there?
Yeah.
Because I would say,
yeah. Your dog doesn't bark, Canine? Lacey rarely barks. The only time she barks is when people come over. That's the only time she has to. You say hello and Ginger Girl said bark. Yeah, especially, I mean, and come on. You know, that trailer is older. You know that it's probably not level. And when things aren't level, doors and windows don't shut right, so they are going to make more noise, right? I mean, the odds of that trailer being level, and with as much stuff that wasn't taken care of around there, do you really think that WD-40 was used at all on the back door? I doubt it. I agree. I agree. You know, I don't know. You know, let's see. So I can't tell if that's a newer door or not. It's hard to tell because we don't know. um, I think the house used to be white, then it was painted blue, and I don't know. But yeah, it's hard to tell. But you know, with it, I mean, if you look at the house itself, it doesn't look like things are kept up around there very much. So the odds of that trailer being level, have you ever lived in a trailer? You need to make sure they're level, right? Number one. If you don't, you got all kinds of problems. I mean, your deck doesn't sit right, everything else. So your doors don't shut right. It has to be level, right? Like I said, and using WD-40, I mean, I just don't see that they did that, in my opinion. But that's kind of what I was thinking. They're out there in the boonies. They don't think that anybody's going to bother coming in. So if it gets too cold at night, so Daniel's mom could come and go as she pleases, you know, that's a valid point, right? But I also understand what these two are talking about, because I used to put I had the actual thing that you buy that you put in, you know, that braces sliding glass doors so they can't be open. But yes, you can use a piece of wood just as easily. There's so much to do there that a new door was top of the list, yeah. Or even WD-40. I mean, I just, you know, to make it quieter, easier to move. I just don't see that being done, in my opinion. But I agree. Sliders aren't quiet. Even if they're brand new, they make a swishing noise because of the rubber, right? They swish. Now, whether you could hear that in the next room or not, I don't know, but yeah, exactly. Could have been the reason why they said the baby couldn't stay there. We don't know why. People are speculating rugs and, you know, other stuff, but somebody said that on dispatch the officers found paraphernalia. I haven't heard on dispatch yet where that was said, so I can't verify that. So in my opinion, until that's verified, it's a rumor, right? But let's continue on.
Hey, body language is what brought me to the YouTube channel, but I'm really a motivation guy. I'm about what's going on in somebody's head when they're doing this. And so I look, big ears, little eyes. I listen first and then look. So I hear those things. They scream at me when a person's doing all that up talk.
Wow. That's very interesting. I noticed that on I Want Them Home. She
Yeah.
does an up talk.
Whoop, whoop.
And it just really it seems so uncertain that she wants them home, which is weird. And then she does a shoulder shrug when she says
Single.
I want them home again for the second time. She does a double shoulder shrug.
Yeah, and you know that can, if your hands are up, that can be helplessness. Look, I want them home. That can
Yeah.
be helplessness. But if
So
it's
let's
that,
see. Yeah,
yeah,
let's see
that'd be
let's see
interesting to
because
see.
that's right at the start, and then we can watch the up talk, the tone
Okay,
as
yeah,
well
that
at the
sounds
same
cool.
time.
All right. So I just got to say, guys, they're talking about this up talk. Am I stupid? I'm not getting it. I listened to her last night for this up talk. I don't get it. Oh, when I owned a home, WD-40 was my best friend. Oh, that's a good idea. Less toxic. Yeah. Um, but did she say that, K9? You know, that was Daniel's words. Daniel said that she said that, right? Or no, his cousin said she said that. Do we know for a fact she said that? Malaya's never told us she said that. Right? So I don't know. But anyway, this up talk. You guys tell me, because I'm going to listen again, and then I may come back and say, oh, I get it now. Hopefully I do, because I didn't get it last night. Maybe I was just too tired.
Hopeful as possible. I want them home. I want to hold them. And I want them home. What happened was we woke up, I heard them playing in the next room beside us, and I was drifting in and out of sleep. And they're not the type of kids that we tell them not to go outside on their own. We always make sure that we're out there with them, watching them. And they happen to just get out that sliding door, and we can't hear it when it opens.
So here, you hear that and.
Yes.
Those are opportunities. It doesn't mean that the person's being deceptive.
Okay.
Anytime a person says and, that is a shortened version of and then after that.
Right.
And that's called time hiding.
Yes.
There's any time a person uses a contracted time, there's a problem. Because remember, I talk about occasionally micro interview. And a micro interview says, you said and, hold on, let's open that up. And then you listen. This is a beautiful way to catch a lot of liars. They're running along, they're going boom, 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 and then after that, everything else goes away. You pick the and then, and then you open that up and you say, okay, let's narrow this down a little bit. And you just keep doing that until you find the anomaly. And often body language comes with it, because that and then is the smoothest way to pass over omitted time. And omitted time, I always use the example. I went to write my ex-wife her alimony check and then went home. But you backed over. You just didn't mention it. That's the way people lie. It's the easiest way. If I can glide over something, again, not saying that's the case, but it's a good indicator. She's saying and that you need to clean it up and ask some questions. Might be your normal speech pattern.
I did actually notice that the and hiding time.
People do it to you every day, so you don't notice it's the problem. And then I went to, and after that, and what's interesting is like the forward and backward pass that you use. I didn't learn that in interrogation. I learned that actually running construction projects, because you forward and backward pass construction to make sure you're not missing anything. And, I was teaching interrogation still at the time at lettered agencies up in DC. And I said, look, forward backward pass is a powerful tool we use in project management that can take a story apart, because timelines are, nobody practices backward.
Right. Yeah, it's like doing the alphabet backwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I always think it's unfair when they're trying to pull somebody over and they're trying to catch them for drunk driving. They say that the alphabet backwards. I'm like, I'm drunk, man. I'm drunk right now.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how to do that, and I'm sober.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that that's pretty much it. That most of the things that I have, except, yeah, I guess we kind of went over the they're so sweet. They talk to
Yeah,
anyone.
go play that little piece too, that because that's where the lilting starts. Right after that, I think is where the lilting gets worse, right?
Yeah,
They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They they will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone. They're just extremely sweet kids.
Not a whole lot. There's just opportunities for her to hide information that I would not leave alone.
right.
And there's some logic gaps. Your culture, you know the culture. Look, most of the people who are going to watch you, you could have 1 million people watch this, and 20 would probably know the culture because you live in a very secluded area, very
Yeah.
isolated area. And so you'll have more understanding. So talk about that in your analysis. Say, look, I live in this world.
Yeah.
This is not how things go.
No.
Where I live in the part of Georgia I live in, we recognize outsiders very quickly. We all do because
Right.
the world is very different here. So take advantage. Remember, I always said everybody's born able to do the same things unless they have a disability.
Hmm.
And then we start assigning meaning to body language. And
Yeah.
then culture's primary power in body language is to pair your ability to do things.
Right.
So, your little kid will come in the room using a middle finger and you'll go, stop.
Yeah.
Because it means something.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, it wouldn't mean the same thing.
Right.
Your little kid runs in and does that. Doesn't mean the same thing in UK.
Yeah.
So all those places, we start assigning meaning to it. And there's a lot of cultural anomaly, number one, in a given region, but also in the kind of people who move to wilderness.
Right.
I mean, you and I share a love for no neighbors up close. And my neighbors, I can't see one.
Yeah.
I've got one that's about 300 yards from me. Good guy, good friend, a cop. We get along great. And then the neighbors drop off from there,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of the points that the stepfather made was that they wouldn't cross the street. So it's very strange because I have a 6-year-old, and it's very much like if she wanted to cross the street, she would probably cross the street if she felt like crossing, which she's not allowed to, but it doesn't mean they won't.
Sadie, this is a really weird one because the likelihood that this kid's just walked off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It really, it does not seem likely, and it's
That's interesting. But before I get on to that point, I caught it. I got the uptalk. I understood. It's very subtle, but it's there. One of my friends used yada yada. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Oh yeah, Brenda, they heard her. And I told them why she was barking. Oh, and what she does if you don't get that door open enough, she comes back up here to bark some more out the window at you. She actually scared me when she started barking. Oh goodness. But the odds of them actually walking off, I agree. I also agree with her point about when Daniel said that they would never walk across the street. That's bull. When kids are out on their own, you don't know what they're going to do, right? Because what mom and dad have said goes in and out as quickly as it came in. I mean, kids are kids. They're not always going to listen, right? So, yeah. And I caught it. It's like her last word was lilted up, you know. And Lacey barked. Kind of like that, right? And Lacey barked. Oh goodness. So, but him saying, I mean, he's just honest, right? And he said the odds of them just walking off, and he just kind of makes a face. I agree with him. They didn't walk off. They didn't, right? But what he has to say about stepdad here is pretty interesting, I think.
And the fact that they're pushing the abduction is even more concerning.
That's a big red flag. It is a big red flag. And look, some people would do that because they want the government involved in everything. But usually people who move out to the woods
Good point.
don't want a lot of government involved.
No.
I mean, the last place you want to call is the government and say, hey, do this.
Yep. Also, for more context, I didn't want to say this beforehand, but the mother left the property after that interview that she had with the media. So apparently the stepfather and the mother got in a big fight of some kind, and now she's gone. She's left the property.
Interesting.
Yes.
That could say something about a whole lot of things. Would you leave that alone for a minute?
Yeah.
It was like I could see his mind, spinning. Could you guys see that too? Interesting. And it was like, even there where he's paused, his mind is like spinning, like, yeah, that opens up the door to a whole lot of other things, doesn't it? Right? It just made me laugh because, yes, does open the door.
All right, so here's the stepfather.
I know they took their boots. That's pink boots for Lily, blue boots for Jack, with dinosaurs on them. Lily had her backpack with white, and it was white with strawberries on it. I imagine now if they're in the woods that it'd be probably brown, but I don't see them carrying their backpack. I don't see them keeping a pull-up one for that long after it got soaked from the very first day. We only found the 2 boot tracks outside of the house.
Whereabouts?
Right beside the house, probably 10 feet away from the backyard.
In the backyard, okay.
Nothing new, other than the helicopters are still in the air, and they had dogs. They took around the dogs today, and
I see one thing right off the bat. Why do you ask, Sadie? Why do you ask? They had their boots. You see that eye lock? Boom.
Yeah.
Something's up with eye lock like that. Now, maybe he's just socially awkward because, they said their kids are on the spectrum. It's possible he's got something going on there. But that hard eye lock is not typical of people on the spectrum either. Most of the time, they're all over the place.
Right.
But that hard eye contact, we always suspect a person when they do it. Scott and I, oddly enough, I have this thing up behind me still from last week from the show we just did for Thursday. And in that was where we talk about romancer. Remember that hard eye contact. I want to make sure that you are paying attention to me, and I want to make sure of how things go.
Yeah.
Usually people are moving their eyes, especially in accessing. If we go back and look, and he's going, it was blue boots and pink boots, and then a white backpack with red somethings on it.
Huh.
That's hard to do. I mean, let me ask you this. What's your little girl wearing right now? Watch your eyes.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's so true.
You know, they took their boots. That's pink boots for Lily, blue boots for Jack, with dinosaurs on them.
See,
Wow.
Had her backpack.
I would be suspicious of this guy on a grand scale because that eye movement, he does downright. They took their boots. Remember, eye movement for me is a powerful thing. I'm the guy on the team who's always saying, boom, pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And, if you want me to give you a 5-minute session on what that looks like and how it works, happy to.
Yeah.
So I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you.
Okay. Oh no.
So, tell me what you had for breakfast. Boom. See it? And tell me the last thing your daughter said to you before you started this podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Boom. There you go. You see what I mean? All we're after is getting a baseline. Your baseline is probably to the left, and I think you were trying to remember what you had for breakfast, and you're probably trying to string stuff together because I think your baseline is left. So if I ask you a question, if you were to walk out, and if I'm right, we'll play it by ear because I have never baselined you. I don't do it to people I care about. But if I ask you this question, I'm right, your eyes are going to go up left. You let them do what they do. If you walk out your back door Which direction do you have to look to see the wood pile?
Mm.
There you go. That's what I'm after. You see now, and then here's the second question. If you walk to the wood pile and look to your right, what do you see?
Hmm.
Now you're not sure. Is
No,
that
I'm
what
not
it is,
sure.
right?
No.
Yeah. So good. That's good. I think you're still a left baseliner anyway. So if I ask you, well, you got a favorite song?
Yeah. I can't think
And
of it
what is
right
it?
now.
Okay. Well, yeah, favorite poetry, favorite any words that you like.
I've
What's
been
on your
listening.
arm? What's on your arm?
Every day and every way I'm getting better and better.
So you remember that. You don't have
Yeah,
to think.
I don't have to look.
So what's cool about eye movement is what we do is we ask for a baseline. And the baseline's pretty simple. I'm going to ask you questions that force you to use your visual cortex.
Right.
And there's lots of reasons people think this works. Some people think it don't. This is Bandler. This is Richard Bandler. I talked to him a while ago, by the way. I've asked him to do an interview, and I'll put that on a YouTube channel, even though I'm not doing a lot with my YouTube channel.
You
But
should.
it uses your visual cortex, and so your eyes are going high in your head, meaning above your brow ridge, looking up. And you just
Right.
did that, either right or left. And we ask a question that we want the person to answer so we can figure out where they go, left or right. That's visual, up above the brow ridge.
Right.
Sound is usually between the brow ridge and the cheekbone, either
Wow.
left or right. And we ask a question for memory, like your favorite song, like your favorite sentence, whatever it is. So the person goes and looks left or right for their baseline, and then we know they're left or right. And then down to the right is emotion, down to the
Right.
left is internal voice. We see him go to emotion when he's talking about what they were wearing.
Hmm.
Don't know why. I want to poke and prod and try to figure out, understand it a little bit. If I were poking and prodding and asking questions, I would try to baseline him pretty quickly. But he's not really even accessing after the emotional part. He's just looking at you and saying, and they were red and blue, and yeah, because he knows what they were wearing, likely.
Yeah.
He's not having to remember. If you, almost every one of these people, the McCanns, anybody else, when you ask them what their kid was wearing, they have to remember.
Right.
That's why you usually know they're not, this is an odd one. This is another red flag.
I urge the public to come out if you have anything, come out as fast as possible and get it to any detachment or any police service that you have available to get to talk to. And Jack just absolutely loves bugs, dinosaurs, anything like that. Lily loves girly things, but she also loves doing everything with Jack, bugs. They're like best friends.
This kid's on my radar.
He said loved in past
Yeah,
tense there.
But even better,
Yeah. Yes.
there's no emotion, no tears, no anything else. There's some contempt
Yeah.
or disgust. I can't tell which. You'd have to go
Right.
back and watch it. But early in, he's going to go to whatever police.
Any detachment or any police service that you have available.
Yeah.
He exposes his teeth. Either he's in contempt or, it's an exposing of canines, one or the other.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which. But if you go back, you can freeze it and find it.
Yes.
There's a whole lot of mismatched signaling coming from this guy.
Wow.
Looking you dead in the eyes when he's trying to act.
I like it. Wow. I like it. I thought it was funny when he mimicked Dan crying. But he's picking out a lot of anomalies in Dan's speech, and he doesn't think he's being honest with the boots and the backpack. And you saw when he was doing it with her, she had to think. Now, as far as we know, she's a nice lady. She's probably a good mother, right? But she couldn't remember what her daughter was wearing right off the bat, right? So I'm glad I can make you laugh, Neuro. Welcome in. I told you, Neuro, great minds think alike. I watched it last night, honestly, and then I saw your email this morning. Um, but yes, I find it really funny that he's picking out these things, right? So we know that parents of missing children watch other shows. They watch YouTube. We know it. Daniel never brought up the soothers or pacifiers before I talked about them. Now, is that a coincidence? Could be, but it's kind of amazing. The other thing is, if he knew anything about Sebastian's case, he knew that Sebastian left without shoes. I'm just throwing that out there. Now, I will say this, guys. Everyone, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody here. I think we still have a long way to go to know what happened in this case, right? But everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but I don't think Canada law works like that. I think Ginger said that you're guilty until proven innocent. Isn't that how it goes, Ginger? In Canada. But so I don't know. I'm going by American law, I guess, because until they're proven guilty. You heard from a podcast interviewer with reporter that Daniel's no longer talking with the mainstream media. Well, probably my first thought was, well, that's pretty dumb, because mainstream media is where you want to stay. You don't want to be talking to YouTubers, because look what happens. Drama, drama, drama. Right? It is. So they're guilty until proven innocent in a court of law in Canada, which is kind of different, but okay. It's probably pretty accurate because we kind of do that in America anyway. As much as we try to say we're not, I think, we kind of do, don't we? So I'm just saying, did something happen? Did he take their boots along with them? The pull up? How does he know that backpack is muddy? Because he threw it in the Bay of Fundy? One of the things I noticed that when the water washes in, it washes in a bunch of mud in the Bay of Fundy. All you have to do is go and watch videos on the Bay of Fundy to see what happens. I don't know. I could be totally off. But let's continue on.
Access, and then the fake cry, and
Yes.
just a whole lot. And then loved. Yeah.
Yes. I noticed as
Beautiful
soon as
catch.
he broke away, he immediately checked to see if his story was being bought. He was like,
Yep. Confirming glance. Yeah.
yeah.
It was almost like Phantom of the Opera or something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that I had to show you because that's just it's
Well,
something.
He's red flag boy for sure.
Yes.
And now remember, let's talk about dynamics of relationship.
Right.
It's entirely possible that something happened that she was not part of,
Right.
and that she was suspicious of, but party to and guilty feelings for. And it's
Yeah.
entirely possible they just feel guilty from the people being gone. But this guy has a ton of red flags,
Yeah.
in my taste, and yours too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You probably got a ton more.
The big thing is that a lot of his stories are just very repetitive. And this is not in this video specifically, but like in many of his videos he repeats himself word for word. He goes like the story that he tells is exactly the same. It doesn't change
Yeah.
at all. And it's
Script.
like there's no you can tell that he's retelling a story that he's thought of as opposed to reliving a memory, because I mean obviously when you go back to a memory
Yeah.
it changes every time you go back to
Well,
it.
it's normal when you get much older, you've lived through something for a long time. Like if I tell you a story about the Middle East, it's not going to be identical, but it's going to be damn
Right.
close because
Of course.
I remember.
So yeah, I agree more with him on that than I do with her. Yeah, there were no tears, and he is scripted very much so. And I don't believe that when someone is telling a true story that it's different every time. I don't believe that. Different words maybe are used, but the story is the same, right? Because the truth is always the same, right? So I know what she's trying to say, but I don't really agree. Oh, goodness, excuse me. Tried to mute it before I did that. Doggone allergies. All right, let's continue on.
The parts that matter that people want to know and that kind of thing. And because it becomes rote, and neural pathways, as you know, 2,000 passes, it's there. And so a lot of the time, what will happen is your story will stay really tight as you get older because you've dressed it a few times for people's consumption.
Yeah.
But not early.
No.
It's my most stressful moments in my life. Early, I would have a hard time putting the story together exactly the same way every time because you're thinking, why did that happen? Why did that happen? Why did that happen?
Yeah.
And then you're trying to think of the most stressful thing that's ever happened to you in your life. And if it's 10 years later, okay, you repeat the story pretty much the same way.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to sort it out, my opinion, one of the hardest things for human brains to do is to store information you have no box for.
Right.
I think this is just my opinion, I think what most people call PTSD is there's no place in their mechanism, in their schema, in their database to plug something in.
Yeah.
And so it never gets settled. It just rolls around in their head the rest of their life.
Wow.
I mean, I'll give you the first Gulf War. I went there. I was working at SEER school. I was doing violent physical things every day of my life. And when I went to war, it was war. I expected people to get killed and hurt. And yeah, it bothered me, of course, but there were places for that to go in my head.
Wow.
On the other hand, guys who had never thought of any of that kind of stuff, we're not dealing with violent world or any of that kind of stuff, it was a lot harder for them. And they had no concept of Middle Eastern politics and how people treat each other and all of that kind of thing. So it was tougher for those guys than it was for those of us who had spent our time studying that part of the world.
Right.
And I think a lot of soldiers are not ready for the things they see. There's no mailbox to put them in, and therapy can help land it somewhere. That's what I think therapy does best, is help you sort. So if you don't have a place to put stuff in your head, it's going to be there rolling around. And it is the reason I ramble that long about what I'm talking about is because your brain is trying to normalize that stuff. It doesn't immediately go to this is the story.
Yeah.
We don't talk that way. We don't say, oh, they went outside, they had on these shoes, they walked 20 yards, they disappeared. That doesn't set well with an adult. That two children could vanish that easily.
Yeah, definitely not. It's not accurate, especially for a 6 and a 4-year-old. They just wouldn't, you wouldn't see that happen. And I don't know, it's just everything about this is.
That's adult. I agree with you 100%. That's an
And not just one child, but two. I mean, that's what's tough, right? 2 children. So let me see. In my opinion, you do in some cases where people are not given bond. Yeah, but I think they look at it more as, are they, a flight risk as far as bond. Thank you, Neuro and Canine. Ginger girl. Okay. You agree with what he says about PTSD? You know who I was thinking about when he was talking about that was this guy right here, because they said he's got mental health issues ever since he was in the military. So when he was talking about that, I was thinking of Travis Ducker. He has nowhere to put it. Now he's taking the lives of his 3 young daughters, and he's still out on the run. And it kind of sounds like there was a sighting of him that they can't confirm, which I thought maybe he just took his own life and he's out there in the woods somewhere, but I don't know. Sounds like they're seeing him around places. So I'm not sure. Do not know. But it's kind of interesting that he went into that. I don't think that was Daniel in the military? I don't know.
Adult way of thinking. I've
Yeah.
had enough of your, excuse my language, I had enough of your shit. I'm going to put my backpack on and leave.
Yeah.
What 6-year-old does that? I've had enough
Yeah.
of you. Unless they've seen it from adults,
Yeah.
then they may
that's true.
emulate that behavior.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's all
Actually,
kinds of
this
stuff here that makes it interesting.
Yeah, it is. This just made me think my son today put on a backpack and he's 9 and he walked down the street with his backpack on. He's leaving home. And so it just
That's
made me
funny.
think of that. But he certainly didn't make it. Well, he just went down the street and came right back because he knows that he knows.
They're bears.
Yes. I feel like the 6-year-old and this 4-year-old were, I mean, if they had wandered off, they should have known better. They should have been taught better. If they're living in the middle of the woods, you should know what is at stake in the middle of the woods. So
Right.
that's another big thing where
I have this stinking feeling, though, that these kids weren't taught much, unfortunately. What do you guys think? I feel like these kids weren't, weren't taught a lot. Yeah, it's really heartbreaking. I am stuck on the items Daniel is focused on: the boots, backpack, and pull up. Did Daniel put these things in the woods and is surprised they haven't been found yet? I mean, it's, it's making us wonder, isn't it? We're all thinking the same things. What, I would kids put on their boots if they were going outside? Yeah, maybe, would they have them on the wrong feet? Probably. Right. I mean, that's the way I see kids doing, mom has to be right there saying, no, this one goes on your left foot. This is your left foot. And this one goes on your right foot. This is your right foot. Right. I mean, it's a repetition thing until they get it. Yeah. But Daniel potty trained them and took their soothers away. Well, if you potty train them, why is Jack in a pull-up? I think so. I think they did too. I think they did too. I don't think they were taught much at all. You know, we've seen the picture of them with their soothers. They were a bit old. Maybe not Jack so much right here, but for sure Lily. She's a bit old to have a soother in her mouth. I don't know. Soother seems funny to me. I call them pacifiers or binkies. That's what we call them here. But she's and I realize that's making a judgment. I don't mean to, except for the fact that it does cause problems with their talking. We went over that. Oh, the pull-up was just for nights. Gotcha. A couple of pictures of Lily she had on a pull-up. Dummies, is that what you call them? Every toddler I raised would take their pull-up off first thing in the morning. Right? They don't like, yeah, exactly. When they're old enough to take their diapers off, that's when I said, all right, then you're old enough to be potty trained. If you're old enough to take your own diaper off to tell me it needs to be changed, then you're old enough to be potty trained. That's our next step, right? I agree. She got up allegedly at 6 o'clock to email the school. So why didn't she stay up? Okay, so they're called dummies in the UK. They're called pacifiers or binkies in the US, and they're called soothers in Canada. What a difference. But dummies, I mean, I had one on every finger as a toddler. My kids didn't really like them, which I was grateful for. I guess my kids just wanted to talk. I don't know. But they really didn't care for him, which I'm glad about. And I didn't have to worry about taking them away. But both of my kid had blankies. That I ended up having to take away. They loved their blankies. A childhood blanket with satin around the edges, and that satin is what they rubbed between their fingers as they were going to sleep at night, or rubbed on their cheeks. Well, we'll never stop you talking. Oh, it didn't stop you from talking. Oh, your son only liked him. Oh, I never thought of doing that. That's interesting. You just had a Cabbage Patch doll, and your son had a Poop Bear, never dummies. Gotcha. My kid's the only one that had blankies. That makes sense. My 3-year-old used to call her little brother's pacifier sucker. So we started calling them suckers. That makes sense to me because they do suck on them. That's funny. So my kids were the only ones that like blankies? Really? My oldest, by the time I took hers away, she only had like a square, like a 1 foot square left. Oh, your youngest had a blanket. she, she only had like a square left. It had seen many washings, let me tell you.
Where, yeah, it just doesn't sit right. It seems very off.
Well, and for me, the pile of red flags is on him. And she's got some wilting, she's got some time words, but nothing that screams, except for that forehead going away to concerned and losing the grief muscle when she starts to talk about grieving things closer to the end. That's the only thing. And there's some red flags in there for sure we talked about, but not like there's a lot of screaming stuff with this guy. Maybe it's because he's neurodivergent or something, but it's interesting.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else.
Well, a whole lot of downright there, if you notice, a whole lot of downright, but that could be because of the accusations. That could be because of a lot of other things. There's a whole lot of grief muscle here that we didn't see as much before.
Yeah.
Around the lie detector. That maybe he'll get Jim Smith.
I hope so. Oh my goodness.
That would
Well,
be great.
I thought it was interesting because him pointing out the crazy accusations online really just is like it's making it about him and not about the kids. I thought that was interesting. What did you think of that?
Well, I will say they're not his kids. They're somebody else's kids. They're stepchildren, and some people can't deal well with that. Yeah, my son was my stepson, and I loved him more than anything in the world. Never ever thought I would have kids. And then when we were, because I was 40 when I settled down. So for me, it was one of the best parts of my life. Some people don't feel that way about their spouse's children. So they don't have the connection. And how long have they been together?
2 years, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. A lot of times, if this guy doesn't have a real connection with those children, the grief around him will be more powerful than the grief around the children about all the accusations and that stuff. So I try to listen to, and me, I try to advocate and give everybody an opportunity and say what's possibly happening.
Yeah.
That still doesn't mean that I trust this guy.
No.
So just because he's showing more grief around being polygraphed and accusations, not surprised.
Yeah.
And how old are they? 30-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
It's a really interesting study I read years ago. I'll have to find and quote it, but they show babies to men and women. All women's pupils dilate when they see babies. All young men's pupils are dependent whether they dilate or not. If they are pair bonded with a woman in there, and I don't know, they've tried this with gay men or any of that, but when they're pair bonded with a woman, their pupils dilate when they see babies. So there's something about relationship that changes things too. And, young men typically are like, I grew up in a world where everybody was, I said this to somebody yesterday. I grew up in a world where everybody was fit, young, and had a long life ahead of them, except for combat. So most of my friends were between 25 and 35. The old guys were getting ready to retire by 38 and 40, right in there. So we had an artificial sense of what's normal. And, young men typically don't think about things the same way young women do. You're better at paying attention to a lot of detail that young men don't, even military guys, because we are focused on different kinds of things. And your brains notice details on a level that ours just simply don't. They're looking for different things. They're paying attention to the connection between things. And, people somebody watching this will be upset because I say, your brains are designed for nurture and ours are not. They're just not. We can learn. Don't get me wrong, we can learn. But your brain constantly pays attention to things and looks at it 50 times. My brain goes, I got a plan and we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
It's the way our brains are wired. Now, that doesn't mean that either one of us is going to be better than the other in a skill set because of that. But it means that her story is going to be more, and his is going to be a big sweeping, moving thing with big blocks. And that's what we're seeing. It's about the family. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Where she's talking about the kids and about what happened and what could be going on and the search. He's going, they're gone. They took their backpack and left. He's telling big stories that he came to tell.
Yeah.
And then he's also in this piece doing something that's all about how people feel about him.
Yeah.
How people, and it's not just me, it's everybody. I'm going to have everybody.
Yeah.
If Mark were here, Mark would say, everybody in Nova Scotia is getting autographed. So Mark reads into those big disclaimers. He's like, no, they can't polygraph everybody. I might be there. What are they going to polygraph me? So he's talking in big sweeping terms that he's trying to fix the problem, all this kind of stuff. That again makes you go, why do you want everybody polygraphed? Who was at your house? That might be who I would start with. Who was there yesterday, the day before?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think again, I feel like a lot of what these people do is they really just try to redirect the attention off of them. That's kind of the impression that I'm getting.
Well, no, I agree with you here. When he does that broadening of the possible, this is as Chase would, what does he always say? Something about introducing vagueness or introducing ambiguity.
Yeah.
So, I interrogated prisoners for 20 years. Prisoners try to avoid answering questions.
Right.
It's what they do best because they got all the time in the world on their hands. This feels a lot like, everybody. Now we're getting to big terms. We're getting to big things where everybody's possibly a suspect.
Yeah.
Because if everybody's a suspect, then I'm less likely to be the guy. So
Right.
you see it. I agree with you there.
Hmm.
Good call.
Thank you.
You mentioned last time we chatted that you'd offered to do a polygraph test.
That is
Has
correct.
that already happened?
That has happened.
And did you get results from that yet?
I do have results, and I don't know if I can share those results, but they were good in my favor, we'll say that. Trust the RCMP word, and I mean, you don't have to trust my word, but I'm the only one doing media for Jack and Lilly, trying to keep the story alive and get them found.
Two things right off. And remember, this is the first time I've watched this.
Yeah.
Moral high ground and rising up on those feet and leaning in. So people will say rising on your feet is a gravity-defying act. It's also an adapter. At the end of the day, energy's got to go somewhere. And he's taking moral high ground. Look, it's me. I'm the only person. Did you see any illustrators?
Mm-mm.
Something missing.
Wow.
What do you have? Because you watched this before. You probably have a whole lot of stuff to.
Well, I didn't know. I'm so torn on this because I was just thinking of like the implications of if he was not telling the truth there
Right.
versus,
Yep.
I mean, but it's also just like a very vague answer that he's given. He doesn't
I
straight
think-
up say yes or no.
I don't think this guy might be quite capable of giving good direct. Because people, communication styles come and go with people, and
Yeah.
this is the reason I'm always funny about using tense, because people change tenses casually, not like loved. That's a different story.
Yeah.
But people change tenses casually. I'm from South Georgia, and people there talk in multiple tenses in the same sentence sometimes.
Right.
It's just like, and it has to do with education,
Right.
with colloquial speech patterns. I mean, you live in the woods, some of your neighbors have great speech patterns. Others,
Yeah.
you can't understand them. It's just the nature of the people. So
Yeah.
I'm careful with all of that. The movement, and look, this is the cool part of what we do. If I were going back and analyzing these guys, I'd go back through with a fine tooth comb. But what we can say, and what I always said as an interrogator is, you just got my attention. Now I'll dig in. I may say you didn't do anything wrong when I'm done, but this guy would really not like the level of attention I would give him because of a handful of things. And if he thinks people think he's done something wrong, ding, ding, ding. Red flag, red flag, red flag. It doesn't mean you did anything, but it does mean you've given us reason to be suspicious. And that's enough, because they're babies. These are children. You shouldn't be angry when people are trying to help you. You should be angry if they're accusing you. And that, that we expect that. We should expect the guy to be a little more agitated if he's being accused of killing his stepchildren or doing something to disappear his stepchildren. You would think he'd be pretty adamant and pretty angry.
Yeah.
So I see energy movement. I see all that. I don't see a lot of, I didn't do anything. I don't see a lot of illustrators. I don't see a lot of denial or emphatic behavior, chin thrusts, and those kinds of things, defiance.
Yeah.
We also don't know anything about him.
Right.
Has he been in jail? Has he been, so there's a ton of stuff to learn.
Yeah, there's a lot of unknowns.
Really good videos, though, Sadie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for watching.
So, hello, Cheryl. Good to see you. I agree with him that there's a lot of red flags, and he's going to be looking at Daniel a lot closer, he said. I don't think he's trying to make him look like a saint. I think Greg tries to be honest. He's not quick to make a judgment, but there is a lot of red flags in his opinion, and he's going to be watching them. I believe that. Oh, Canine, that's so sweet. It has a broken neck. Who broke the neck, Canine? Why don't you fix it? Oh. Moral high ground. Yeah. So here was my thought. So that was like the last interview that Daniel did, wasn't it? And now Ginger just said that she heard that he's not doing any more interviews with mainstream media. Is that because he's gonna, quote, show Malehya that he's not gonna stand up for her kids anymore? I don't know, just a thought. Too much loving. But I mean, just a thought is he's like, these aren't even my kids. She's not gonna talk out. Why should I? Because his attempt to reach Malehya with "I'll love her forever" didn't work. I'll be the man you met at the waterfall, or whatever the heck he was saying, right? I'll be the man you once knew. Maybe he's given all that up because she's not responding. Maybe Daniel has a lawyer now. That could be. I was going to say maybe smart that he did get a lawyer if he did, but on the flip side, if he is guilty, we want him to keep talking. So he isn't now what, Neural? Talking to mainstream media, that's what we've heard. Well, the man that he was. Evidently not. Because that's what he said. Will be the, but it's only been a couple of years since they've been together. I mean, isn't that something you say to someone when you've been with them like 10 years, 20 years, something like that? Oh, please come back. I'll change. I'll be the man or the woman you once knew, right? That would make more sense than a couple of years together. But he's gonna search for the rest of his life. Yeah. Um, but he hasn't been in the woods. Yeah. But instead he's gonna go to YouTubers. I heard that he talked to another YouTuber. Is that right? By Messenger? Did he do that, or was that just a rumor I heard? Curious. The honeymoon is over now. Yeah. I guess, once you have a baby, all bets are off. They say some men get pretty jealous of the baby. And think about it this way. I don't know if this is all true or not, but if he was the one taking care of Lily and Jack, and she's all about Meadow, maybe she was even ignoring him. Was he getting fed up? He was texting with a mod from another channel. Gotcha. And wasn't there going to be something else about you were talking about the romance he was having with the media? Yeah. um, I don't know. It's funny. I have no clue. But our grannyism for tonight says all human behavior has a reason. All behavior is solving a problem. I thought about this when I was thinking about behavior analysis, right? Our human behavior, there's reasons behind what we are doing, and we're attempting to solve a problem, but are we doing it in the right way? Right? So if you're a guilty person of a missing child, right? If you're guilty of that, then your human behavior is going to be that you're trying to cover up what you did. Or if you're telling the truth, that truth has a reason. You're going to be telling the truth in order to solve the problem. I thought that made a lot of sense. But I don't know. I'm still... So, prayer warrior, you said you were on the fence earlier. Where are you now? Because honestly, after watching Greg Hartley, kind of leaning toward a little bit more toward need to check out Dan some more, right? Not sure that I totally believe that he's innocent. I'm not ready to say that I think he's 100% guilty, but what about you, prayer warrior? You still on the fence? Ginger, you still on the fence? Oh. You guys, cat got your tongues? And didn't I hear that he was going to be speaking? You see red flags everywhere. Gotcha. On both sides or just with Daniel? Canine. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, he's more worried about Malaya leaving than the kids missing. There really are definitely some red flags, aren't there? For sure. No doubt. No doubt. And, Greg saw a couple of red flags um, in Malaya's conversation as well. So, personal opinion, accident happened and they're covering it up. And Kate, you're not sure what to think. It's tough, isn't it? It really is. Because we don't know what actually physically happened to them. And see, unless RCMP comes out with some solid evidence, guys, and maybe they have it, we don't know yet, but if those kids are in the ocean, we may never have an answer. I hope they're not. You still think an Amber Alert? Ginger said, I'm sitting on the fence watching the red flags on both sides of the fence. I do not believe those children walked into the woods. Yeah. I don't believe they walked into the woods either. In fact, I don't think they went willingly, and I don't think they had their boots on or their backpack in tow. I think somebody else brought those along. Beginning to think that. So you still think an Amber Alert should happen? I'm kind of torn on the Amber Alert thing. I see the need for having it be a special thing, but I think there's a lot of confusion about Amber Alerts, and I think that people are confused across the states and across the countries. So in my opinion, I think that the criteria for Amber Alerts should be clearly defined. And if they don't clearly fall under those criteria, then it's not an Amber Alert. And I think if that was made public and everybody knew, then there wouldn't be an issue. Because we can't have, just because a child goes missing, we can't have an Amber Alert for every single child, because look at how many, it's almost 3,000 kids go missing just in the United States alone every day. That's not anywhere else. Guys, think about that. I mean, do you want your phone to keep ringing off the hook for Amber Alerts? I think that it should be a special thing, but it needs to be clearly defined because there's a lot of ambiguity in there. Yeah, there are too many possible scenarios. Daniel said you could lure them with candy. When did he say that? Canine, part of that was the mother's fault. She didn't think that the police asked her if she thought that he would harm the children, and she didn't think he would in a million years. So, you know, that's where I said I think some clear criteria, you know, are they with someone who has mental health issues? Then an Amber Alert's in order, right? Because they're in danger. Anytime someone has mental health issues, if it's a perpetrator, the abductor, then it should be an Amber Alert because they could be in danger. So I do agree with you that they should have put it out for the Decker girls, but the mother's saying, which I'm not blaming, please don't get me wrong, I'm not blaming the mother at all. At all. She didn't think he would ever do that. He had been a good father up to that point. He went to all their soccer games. I mean, you wouldn't think it, right? I feel no emotion when they speak. You mean Malehya or Daniel? I agree with you. I didn't feel any emotion on either one of them either. Well, they had a suspect and they had a license plate. But Mom didn't think he was a threat, so that's why. But he had mental health issues and they knew it, and he refused to sign the court orders, so they should have done an Amber Alert. But they did do the other alert. So endangered child alert, whatever. They did do that one. Unfortunately, in my opinion, would it have mattered? I wonder, when did he take their lives? Was it Friday night? Because they were still in the same clothes. Of course, they didn't bring any other clothes because they were only supposed to be gone for 3 hours. But sad, really sad. But that's all I had for tonight, guys. Thank you for being here. Please hit the like button on your way out. I would really appreciate it. Hope you guys have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for watching another episode of Granny's Crime Busters. We really appreciate each and every one of you. Don't forget to subscribe and like and even share the content. You can follow us on any of our other social media platforms at YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We really appreciate you guys, and you can also email us at granniescrimebusters@gmail.com. Thank you so much, and we will see you on the next one. Thanks, guys.